So I just watched Fabric of the Cosmos, Illusion of Time, and this is my video essay response. So the documentary opens up by explaining to us that we've been explained wrong what time is. And it starts with a scene of a river of how it's flowing in one direction. And it says that we think of time in a linear, one direction fashion. And that's probably not the best way to think of it. Goes on to say that time has been subject to change as the way of measuring time has changed with different modes of technology. So it goes on to say that for when trains were connecting throughout Europe, different towns had different times depending on when the sun was above their town. That's what they considered to be noon. And so if you're leaving from one town and going to the next, everyone had different times and it was hard to coordinate scheduling. It became a chaos and big deal. So that's the story of modern time, is we needed to start to standardize it and be able to communicate more effectively of what time is and how to all agree. And so two main thinkers on the subject, you have Newton and Einstein. Newton says that time is an immutable property of the universe that moves forward at the same rate everywhere you are. Einstein revolutionizes that idea by saying that that's not the case at all. That time happens at different rates depending on where you are in space and how fast you're traveling. Einstein worked in a patent office, and he had a lot of experience of being around clocks and the most up-to-date technology on how to keep track of time. And so this probably jogged his memory, or jogged his mind on what time was and how do we best describe it. So Einstein created the time-space theory, and it's a 4D fabric that time and space are interconnected, intertwined. And the faster that you move through space, the slower time is for you. So Earth, the speeds on Earth are too slow for us to see the difference. But an experiment in 1971 did prove that what Einstein was talking about was true. What they did is they put two atomic clocks that were set at the same time, and they put one on Earth, the other one in a jet, and they flew the jet around the world. And when the jet landed, the clocks were off very so slightly, but it still confirmed that time does move through space differently. So one of the ways that the documentary explains time that I found very helpful was to think of time and how it's interrelated with space as like a loaf of bread. And you can slice through the loaf of bread at different angles. And so depending on how you're moving through space, you're going to have a different angle through that space. And so you're going to have a different slice of what they call now slices. And so it goes on to say that the past, present, and future are all equally real. But how we orient ourselves in space is going to determine how we subjectively experience time. And so the river analogy that was shown at the very beginning, it's probably better to think of the river as frozen, and that we could slice through the frozen river depending on how we are situated in space. And no laws of physics select for one frame of time over the other. It's just whether or not we can travel to the time that we desire. And so time travel might be possible, and one way we could do that is by utilizing gravity. If you send a person out in space and get them close to a black hole, they will be moving next to something that has such immense gravity that it's warping space-time, And what would be minutes in the proximity to the black hole could be 50 years on Earth. And so when you come back to Earth, you're 50 years ahead, and it's only been a couple hours for you. And so in essence, you've traveled to the future. Now, traveling to the past theoretically could happen by traveling through a wormhole, which is like a subway tunnel through the loaf of bread of time-space. But physicists don't think this is, for whatever reason, real or could happen, because it would make sense that we would have visitors from the future if it could happen. And so there's a concept called the arrow of time, and what that is explaining why we can't really travel to the past. And the arrow of time is a theory that the Big Bang is propelling time in one direction, and that's the result of entropy. That the beginning of the universe and the Big Bang was highly, highly organized, and we're becoming more and more disorganized over time, and so we can't go back. It's something like that. Okay, so those were my notes from the Illusion of Time documentary, and I learned a lot about how to better view the space-time fabric and the possibilities of experiencing time differently.